We are Mitzvah 173. Now, we've been speaking about tsaras, the Metzora, leprosy, that sort of thing. That was the subject we've been talking about. Now, we're into the process of how when somebody is finished with his tsaras, he has to go through a purification process. And he brings various sacrifices. He brings two birds, and he has a bowl full of blood, and he dips the bird in. One of the birds he shechts, and the other bird he lets go free. There's a whole technical process of what he does when he has to purify himself. But I'm not going to go through the whole thing. The key point here is the main feature here he brings some cedar wood, eitz erez, ve'ezov. Ezov is translated as hyssop. Hyssop is a bush of some sort. He takes a piece of cedar wood, which represents the haughtiness that led him to speak lashon hara. When you disparage somebody, it's usually because either you think highly of yourself and you're looking down at other people, or you're trying to promote yourself at the expense of other people. If I push down on somebody else, then I push myself up. So the source of any negative view and manifestation of their view in a verbal sense is a result of some sort of haughtiness, some sort of arrogance. So the cedar tree is a very tall tree. The cedar tree represents his haughtiness, and the hyssop, which is a bush, represents the humility. You notice that the Torah was given on Har Sinai, right? So Har Sinai, the famous medrash is, why did they choose Mount Sinai? Because the lowest mountain. Torah goes to humility. But the irony shouldn't be lost on you. It's the lowest, but it's the mountain. In other words, if the whole point is humility, so go into a crater, give the Torah in a crater, right? Wouldn't that make more sense? Why are you giving it on a mountain if the whole point is it's the lowest of the mountains? Yes, I can think it's something lower than a mountain. Give it on the flatland or put it in a crater. The answer is that there's a difference between humility and a little bit of self-respect. I mean, humility doesn't mean walking around dirty and soiled and so on and so forth. That's a crater, that's a valley. Humility means that you have a certain dignity, a certain self-respect, which is not a contradiction to haughtiness. Haughtiness is the feeling that, it's because of me and I've achieved it, and I look down at others who are not on the same level or don't have the same amount of money, and so on and so forth. I was just in a very, very wealthy neighborhood. People with literally hundreds of millions of dollars. In a room for, with people who have hundreds of millions of dollars. And I noticed that there are two types of people. You could have hundreds of millions of dollars and you could be down to earth, or you could be hundreds of millions of dollars and you smell like money. And it's not a good smell. I mean, it is a good smell. It's the best smell in the world, but not when it's coming from a human being. And so there's a famous story about the guy sitting in a restaurant, and he's a very wealthy man. He's talking to his friends at the table. He's bragging about how much money he has. It's one of his favorite activities, to brag how much money he has. And he's talking, and he's saying, I got so much money, nobody could take my wealth away from me. Nobody could take my wealth away from me. Just then, the waiter passed by, and he bends down, he whispers to the guy, yes, but you can be taken from your wealth. Right? It can end just like that, and it has for many people, even with all the money in the world. So a person understands, on the one hand, you have to be humble. On the other hand, humility does not mean entering into a state of total degeneration, total degradation. Humility means that you have a certain amount, you have to present yourself well, and you have to be well dressed, or not fancy. There's a difference between, in Yiddishkeit demands that. Demand that our clothing the clothing we wear should be humble but presentable clothing. That's what the halacha says. That's why they always ask, why do the frum wear black? Why do the frum wear black? You get the Haredis, all their black. We have four different colors. There's black, blacker, blackest, and super blackest. So why do you have to? The answer is you don't have to. But the halacha describes it as being black as a color of humility, but it should be clean, it should be presentable, and so on and so forth. Being frum does not mean that you do not use deodorant, and being frum does not mean that you should be slovenly. That has nothing to do with it. If there are frum people like that, it's only because that's how they are. But that's not what the rule book says. The rule book says don't be like that. On the other hand, haughtiness. So we're a mountain. You're a small mountain. That means we as a human being we have substance. So we have to recognize that. That's why Torah is given. Now, this guy who speaks lashon hara. Lashon hara is a result of looking down on other people. You're looking for the flaws in other people, either because you think you're wonderful, or because often you have low self-esteem, and therefore the only way to promote yourself is by somehow reducing somebody else. Therefore, that's what's brought is the cedar tree, which represents the haughtiness, and the hyssop, which represents the humility. Number one. Number two, you have these two birds. Now, what he does with the two birds is one of the birds he slaughters and he dips in the what do you call it, and they sprinkle the blood on him. The other bird is set free. Anybody have a guess? What's the symbolism in these two birds, which are really the main feature of this process?
Is it the same idea in Yom Kippur with the two goats?
There is a certain similarity. Yes, there is a certain similarity, and not exactly. There is a certain similarity between the two. The two birds. You go ahead.
No, I just want to ask, how do you shacht a bird?
It depends. Some birds are shechted with a knife, and some birds there's a process of certain sacrifices are slaughtered with what's called malika. Malika is where the kohen who slaughters them has a long thumbnail, and he takes the trachea and esophagus and he pulls it to the back of the neck of the bird, and then he cuts through the two. He cuts through the two of them. In other words, even chicken nowadays, if you do malika on a chicken, or if, let's say you want to eat a pigeon. Now, if you do malika on a pigeon nowadays, you can't eat it. It's treif. You have to shecht it with a knife. Any fowl nowadays has to be shechted with a knife. This one, I think it's regular shechita. I'll double check it, please. I'll double check it. I don't think there's malika. There are certain sacrifices are malika where he cuts through with the thumb. The idea behind that, by the way, if we're already on the subject, is to show that because a bird offering is brought by a poor man. Here, the Torah mandates this for anybody who is what do you call it, who's had leprosy, who's had saras, he has to bring this bird offering because it's a different symbolism. When it comes to the sacrifices of the Beis Hamikdash, a regular person, let's say I want to donate an offering, and one day I decide to donate an offering. So if I'm a man of means, I'll donate a calf, or I'll donate a sheep, or something significant, something prominent. The poor man can't afford it, so he brings a bird. So what we want to show is that his offering as a poor man is so meaningful to us. When he brings it to the Beis Hamikdash, we don't even take the time to go look for a knife. We don't even take time. We're so happy with the gift, symbolically, that we're going to take the bird, we're going to shecht it right away without going to go look for a knife. But one of the lessons there is that when it comes to the needs of a poor person in general, you should be alacritous. You should hurry to take care of the needs of a poor person, not to delay the poor person. That's what the commentaries say by the mitzvah of malika. Here, the symbolism is different. One of the birds is shechted, and one of the birds is set free. What's the idea? What's the idea?
That you can't, like, leprosy is because of Lashon Hara, you know?
Say why?
Leprosy is because of Lashon Hara.
Right.
So you can't get Lashon Hara back once it's gone.
Good. You're close. You're very close. Very close. It could be that's even an idea that's contained in it. Good. What else? You see, what's the first characteristic you think of a bird?
Flies.
Okay, you guys would never make it on the match game on TV. Okay, no, characteristic-wise. Okay, you're right. Birds definitely fly. That's true. What else do birds do?
They lay eggs.
Sing.
Oh, yes, birds chirp. Chirp. They're always chirping. Lashon Hara is a chirper. A person who's a gossiper is a chirper. So what we want to show is that your chirping, the bird that's killed, shows you that chirping kills. Lashon Hara, the Gemara says, could actually kill 3 people because you could create a cycle of hatred. You said this about me, and I told him that he told me that you said about me. As I come back to you and say, why did you tell him that? Why did you say that about me? You go to him and say, why did you tell Kaplan what I said? You create a cycle of hatred where we find that as the result of Lashon Hara, what do you call it? Shaul HaMelech killed Nov Ir HaKohanim. When Doeg HaAdomi came to Shaul HaMelech and he said that the Kohanim of Nov did not arrest David HaMelech. They helped him out. So when Shaul heard that Lashon Hara, he went and he executed all the Kohanim of the city of Nov. And therefore, you see, and as a result of the Lashon Hara, otherwise if he not heard about it, he wouldn't have done it. That's why Lashon Hara could literally, your tongue is far more potent than any weapon that you have, because all you got to do is you can verbally give an order if you're a high enough ranking officer, and that sentences people to life or death. And therefore, the bird that's killed represents the damage of Lashon Hara. I once heard 2 girls were sitting on a bus, and one of the girls turns to the other and she says, "Oh, did you hear Chani became a Kala? Chani got engaged." So the other girl says, "Oi, I feel bad for her chassan. So she was my roommate in seminary for a year. She's a slob, and she's selfish, and she's a mess." And she just goes for about 10 minutes. I guess she says, "Yeah, I know her also." And the two of them are talking about Chani for about 10 minutes. All of a sudden, they get a tap on the shoulder. There's a lady sitting on the bus, sit behind them. She says, "Oh, by the way, girls, I just want to tell you, I've been listening to your conversation for the last 10 minutes. That chassan, Yisachar, I'm his aunt. And I really appreciate all the information. I'm going to be sure to pass that on to the family before it's too late." So the girls are like gewalt, and then one of the girls says to her, "No, we meant she's sloppy and in an artistic way, and all the double talk. My words were taken out of context, like all the politicians always say. My words were taken out of context. The politician gets up there, he says, he's a crooked, no good Nick, and they get him on tape. He says, my words were taken out of context. Didn't sound like they're out of context to me. It sounded pretty clear." Yeah, do you remember that? The peaceful, we're going to have a peaceful a jihad of peace. So they what do you call it? So the girls are just sitting there, and they feel horrible. They're just sitting there. The lady gets up to get off the bus, and she rings the bell, and the bus stops, and she's about to get off the bus. She turns to the girls and says, "Girls, I just want to tell you something. I'm not really his aunt, but I could have been." And she gets off the bus. Because, you don't know. You don't know who's listening. Once you said it, you can't take it back. I heard about another, and this I read in Reader's Digest, so it must be true. A couple invited their newly married friend. The husband's newly married friend comes over to the house. So Bill comes over with his new bride, and the hostess, they're sitting there at the table talking for a while. Then the hostess goes up to the room to check on the baby. And she's calling for him. She says, "Ralph," she calls her husband, "I need some help with the baby." So Ralph goes up to the room. So she says, "What kind of loser did Bill pick? I mean, she talks too much, and she wears too much makeup, and she's got a big mouth, and she's gone for about 10 minutes. She gets all off her chest." Okay, they come back down into the living room, and there's a very uncomfortable silence, and the only sound that they heard was the crackling sound of the infant monitor, which had been left on the dining room table. Yeah, now exactly how do you? Oh, well, I meant too much lipstick in a good way. Oh, well, what can you? Too late. There's nothing you can do. Like somebody once said, I think it was me, a closed mouth gathers no feet. And some people need a portable foot extraction machine because they are constantly putting their foot in their mouth, and that is what the bird symbolizes. All the harm that could come from it. Somebody, Rabbi Adler, told me a terrible story. You'll love it. Rabbi Adler told me there was a wedding, and one of the women, I think the mother, the bride or something, she comes in, and somebody comes over and says, "Wow, you look so lovely." And she bursts into tears, and not happy tears, sad tears. She starts crying. She goes, "What did I say?" I say to her, she says, "The first time anybody's told me that in 30 years. Now somebody's guilty. Somebody's guilty of not saying something. And that's what the second bird represents. The bird that you set free represents not all speech is forbidden. Sometimes speech, it brings life. A well-timed word is extremely important, especially for somebody to have told this lady that she looks lovely, even if she doesn't. And therefore, it's the job of her husband or somebody to have said that in 30 years, that she shouldn't have a traumatic reaction at her daughter's wedding when somebody compliments her. And therefore, a person has to know that a compliment is a very powerful tool. You could change, especially females, you could change their day with a well-timed word. A wife could be having a horrible day, and all you have to say is something like, "Wow, that salad was really good." Yeah? And that's it. It's just a salad. It doesn't take much. And if it's her new skirt, or if it's a picture she put on the wall, you just say, "Wow, you're such a good housekeeper." That's all she needs, because it could literally change her life. One word could pick people up. There's a remarkable, I think we may have spoken about this once, it's worth repeating. There's a medrash that says that when Og Melech HaBashan, you've heard of Og Melech HaBashan, the giant Og who Moshe Rabbeinu killed him when they entered the land of Israel. What's that?
It was on Noach's roof.
Correct. There's a medrash that says that Og survived the flood by hanging on to the outside of Noach's ark. And if you make a calculation that he was alive from the time of Noach until the time the Jewish people entered the land of Israel, when Moshe Rabbeinu killed him, you're talking about hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So the Medrash says, what did Og Melech HaBashan do And he was no tzaddik, by the way. He's the one who tried to get Avram to go to war and get killed so he could marry Sarah. So, so what did he do that he married Sarah? So listen, you know what the Medrash says? Og Melech HaBashan went to Avram and Sarah, and he said, the two of you are beautiful like a tree that grows alongside a brook. That's a beautiful picture, the tree alongside the brook. There's usually a horse in the background, with a girl holding flowers, and that's on all those cards that people send each other, thinking of you, right? And there's always a tree, a brook, a girl, and a horse. Exactly how the horse got there, I'm not sure. It's one of those soft focus cards, thinking of you. My reaction is, don't think of me, just give me the check. I don't care. Don't think of me, I don't care what you think of me, and I don't care if you think about me, just give me the check. But the women like this, thinking of you, So that's a compliment. So the Medrash says, for that compliment, Og merited long life. For a compliment. And why was he killed? I don't know if the Medrash means why was he killed by Avram's descendants or why did he die a violent death. I'm not sure. But apparently, being killed isn't good. And Og Melech HaBashan was killed. So the Medrash says, you know why? Because in the next line, he threw in a sting. He said that the two of you are beautiful like a tree alongside a brook, but you don't produce fruits. For that line, that sting, they didn't have children. For that sting was decreed that he's going to be killed. So when there's a verse in Mishlei that says, Mavis v'chayim biyad haloshon. Death and life is in the hands of the tongue. The tongue is rather, you see, so people are always wondering, what can I do to live long? You eat a lot of raw nuts, and you jog, and you don't die. All the things that help you to live long. Well, if you're looking for a merit to live long, you have a mouth, and you're going to use your mouth anyway. It's the easiest thing in the world, doesn't cost you any money, doesn't take up any energy. It's the easiest thing in the world. All you got to do is use your mouth to build up and encourage people in life. And you accomplish tremendous things with it, more than many other things. It's unbelievable. I heard about a guy who had, by the way, when I was in America, the last time I was in America, so I had an allergic reaction somewhere. I was in Detroit, so I had an allergic reaction, possibly to Detroit, but I had an allergic reaction, and I didn't know what to do. So I called the lady that was hosting. So she said to call 911. I was staying at an airport hotel at the time, and I had to fly out the next morning. She said, call 911. So I called 911, and the squad comes, and there's the head of this squad. So the girl, she's like it looks like she's a few years out of college, and she says to me, okay, she says, look, if it's an allergic reaction, you have a choice. You can either go to the hospital or stay here. It's your choice. She doesn't think it's severe because it's already 20 minutes later, and the severe reaction is within 20 minutes. And she says, but you have to decide if you want to go to the hospital or not, because if you just stay here and you die, that would be really bad. So, so I was thinking, yes, that would be pretty bad. Yeah. that would be pretty bad. Yes. Death. Like a Hollywood actress once said, there was some disaster. So they were interviewing one of these airless actresses, brainless actresses on TV, and I always ask her about what she thinks about world events. Who cares? And what do you think about that disaster in Bangladesh? She says, oh, well, death is really terrible because when you die, a big part of your life is gone. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. She's a philosophy major. Yeah. So that's the idea. Now the idea is that when you look, these celebrities have said some pretty amazing things. Shaquille O'Neal, also one of the great philosophers of modern times. I call him O'Neal, the great philosopher O'Neal. When one day he said, the trouble with the world is it's too materialistic. The next day he signed a contract for $114 million for 8 years to play for the Lakers. The day before he said, the trouble with the world, next day it is too material. The next day he signed a contract for $114 million. Then the day after that he said, this ain't about money. Yeah, my job either. So you get a what do you call it? Another philosopher for you. So the Torah is teaching you over here that the birds represent that life and death based on what you say. I heard about a guy who had taken on. There's a woman who her husband passed away, and she didn't have any children, or she didn't have any religious children. She wanted somebody to say Kaddish for her husband. Now, people will pay people to say Kaddish for the year. It's perfectly acceptable according to halacha, and it's a big responsibility because you got to get to shul 3 times a day, and you got to say Kaddish. You're being paid for it. This guy told the lady he'll do it for free. He felt bad for her, he'll do it for free, and he undertook to say Kaddish for an entire year. Okay, so the guy's going, and one morning, he's going on. He says to his wife, listen, this is it. I can't. It's just too much for me. This is my last day saying Kaddish, and I can't. After today, I'm going to have to tell her that she's going to have to find somebody to pay somebody. I can't do it. So he goes to shul that morning, and he says Kaddish, and he goes out to his car. And after he goes out to his car, one of the guys from the shul comes running out to him. He says, Moish. He says, yeah, what do you want? He's in a hurry to get. He says, yeah, what do you want, Chaim? He says, I just want to tell you, I know that you're saying Kaddish, and I know it's not an easy thing to do. I want to tell you, I really admire that. I really admire the fact that you've undertaken such a difficult project. He says, because of that, he continued saying Kaddish. He says, when he saw somebody was impressed, because we're human beings, we need to know that somebody acknowledges. The fact that he saw somebody was impressed, he continued saying Kaddish. One word. That's all it took was one word from the guy. There's so many examples. There's so many examples. There are other examples which are bad examples. There are about a woman who was pregnant. A woman was pregnant. She had a child who was visibly, she had a 3-year-old child who was visibly, he had some sort of disability, but a bad disability. I forgot what it's called. He had some sort of disability. And she was walking with a 3-year-old child, and some sort of genetic disability. And she's pregnant. She's in her 8th month of pregnancy, and some lady sees her on the street, and she says, wow, aren't you worried that the next one's going to turn out like this one? Now, you understand, somebody let this lady out of her cage, and there she is. So this woman, to her credit, she said to her, no, I'm not worried at all. Whatever HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to have, that's what I'm going to have. But you understand what you could do with your mouth here and say, oops, did I say something wrong? You understand this person is dangerous. This person has to be locked up. I know a woman who reminds me of one of those those teeth they have that bounce around on the table. So I know a woman who reminds me. I saw her the other day with a cell phone. For this lady to have a cell phone is like putting the Cookie Monster in charge of the Salerno factory. That's all she needed now was to have a cell phone. I can't, and she just what she reminds me one of those chattering teeth. My parents had a friend when I was growing up. My brother nicknamed this lady used to come to the house, and before the door was even open, it was going, and my brother named her Jaws. He had seen the TV show, the movie Jaws. He named her Jaws, because she was just on a roll. So it was nice, but it was true. What do you call it? So that's the power. There's so much power in the mouth. I'll tell you one last story. There was a guy in a family. There was a guy, a kollel guy, comes walking out of a shul one morning, and the Rav of the shul stops him, and he says, I want to give you a Yasher Koch. Yasher Koch is I want to congratulate you on your excellent Shalom Bayis work. Shalom Bayis is when you Shalom Bayis is what we call the harmony of the home. And that's one of the things. There are people who are Shalom Bayis counselors. They help couples because to overcome the challenge and to maintain harmony in the home. So the Rav says to this young guy, he says, I want to give you a Yasher Koch on your Shalom Bayis work. He says, thank you very much for the compliment. You got me mixed up with somebody else. I'm not involved in Shalom Bayis. He says, Yasher Koch on your Shalom Bayis work. He says, listen, thank you very much. I think you mean somebody else. He says to him, are you Shlomo Goldstein? He says, yeah. He says, okay, so I want to tell you something. There's a couple in town who's having dreadful marriage problems. I'm a professional counselor. I've been working for them for 6 months, and nothing has helped. Do you remember about 2 weeks ago you were studying in a Beis Medrash, and there was a 14-year-old boy who was studying there in the Beis Medrash. And you were so impressed by his diligence, you walked over to his father, and you said to his father, I want to tell you something, you got a remarkable son. Do you remember that? He goes, yeah. There was a couple. He says, okay. His father is the husband in this marriage, and much of their challenge results from the father's low self-esteem. Your compliment picked him up so high that he went out of that shul, bought his wife a bouquet of flowers, went to a store, bought her a box of chocolate, brought it home. He was in such a good mood. They've had Gan Eden in their house. They've had paradise in the house in the last 2 weeks. What you did with one word, I couldn't do in 6 months of professional counseling. So that's what a person, and you have to realize that there's nobody who's above. I've known nobody who is above hearing a word of encouragement, a compliment. Even men who are not willing to admit it. Men need plenty of stroking. Men need plenty of stroking. Men need plenty of building up. And you say to a guy, walk out and say, hey, that was a good question you asked in Shir the other day. That was a very good question you asked in Shir. Hey, looking good today. Whatever you say to somebody, and if that works by men, by women it's unbelievable. By women it's unbelievable. I should charge you for this because this is precious marriage advice. If you're ever in trouble, in marriage, when you are in trouble in marriage, even no matter how upset your wife is, if you slip in a compliment, she'll say, well, don't try that on me now. You really think so? I'm telling you, they can't walk away from it. They just say, well, you shouldn't have gambled all the money away. Listen, I just know that you have such a forgiving nature, and I figured that you wouldn't be upset. I'm sorry that do you really think I'm forgiving? Yeah, I think so. Well, you're wrong. Out you go. I'm telling you, it works like a charm. It works like it's unbelievable. And with daughters, it works well too. And I had a friend who told me, as I grew up without sisters, I had a friend there were 3 boys, but they had an oldest sister. He said to me, anytime he wanted to get something out of his sister, he would just walk over and he'd say, hey, Sue, wow, you look so good today. Really? Yeah. Maybe you could make me an apple pie. Sure. Off she goes to the races. So they obviously they know when you're being sincere, when you're not being sincere. Women even appreciate the effort. Again, it's something I don't want to hear about your effort. I just want to see the cash. Well, women, they tell the story about the husband who walks in, and he's gone to all his marriage classes. He's a freshly married husband, and he walks into the house. He goes, "Wow, that's such a nice picture on the wall. Wow, what a beautiful new picture." He goes, the wife says, "Well, it's been there 3 weeks, but thanks for the comment. At least he's trying." She's satisfied that she sees he's trying. That's human nature. Human nature it is. We need to. I said to somebody, I was thinking about this recently, and I realized it's very unfortunate that often what you're thinking of somebody is only said when, unfortunately, you have to comfort the mourners and then tell them what you thought of their father. You go to a house of Shiva, you say, well, yeah, your dad was this, and your dad was that, and your dad was the other. Why wait for him to die? Why not say it to him while he's alive, or say it to his family while they're alive? One of the best things, I have a little habit, which I started for not purely, I can't say it was l'shem shamayim, it was not purely altruistic. I more enjoyed it than anything else. But if a kid gets up on the bus, or sometimes I get on the bus, and a little kid stands up. So I always ask the kid, what's your name? Usually kids from my neighborhood. I just ask the kid what his last name is. Then I go to the neighborhood phone book, and I look it up. I look up the phone book. I ask the kid what yeshiva he learns in. And I call the parents to let them know what the kid did. So the reason I did it because I enjoy the reaction on the other end of the phone. Because most parents, we call, hi, is this the Cohens? Yeah. You have a son named Yitzchak who learns in such a yeshiva? Yeah. Yeah. I just want to tell you, you did a very good job on your son. He stood up for me on the bus. He's a very fine boy. And, but. No, I just want you to have nachas from your kid. Then you hear a clunk on the other end of the line as the kid faints, as the parent faints. On the other end of the phone, the parent faints. So I got to actually do it because I actually enjoy the reaction. I enjoyed the reaction of hearing that the mother's voice change. Yeah, I'm not the first person that's ever called about her kid. Yeah, what window did he break today? No, I just want to tell you. He comes. I saw him in shul. He davened so nicely. Yeah. Well, no, I just want you to know that. Is that what you called for? I've had people say that. Is that what you called for? I say, yeah, why doesn't everybody? No. So it's a very important thing. You could change people. I'm going to tell you one last story. This actually happened. I know there was a kid. I walked into shul one morning, and a little kid was about 12 years old. I know his father from my shul. And the kid looks at me and says, good morning. Very polite, nice good morning. I was really impressed. So I called the mother. It was an Erev Shabbos. So I called the mother. It was a Hebrew-speaking Sephardi family. I called them up. I said, Shalom, Medaber Kai. This is Kaplan speaking. And I just want to tell you, your son, very fine boy. He greeted me. Now, not all the kids say good morning like that. At first, she answered the phone. Her voice was, Ken. It's about 2 o'clock Shabbos Friday afternoon. Ken. I say, this is Kaplan. I just want to tell you, you have a very fine. And then you hear, Ken? I thought he went up about 8 octaves. 1 second. So I said, and I want to tell you something else. I watch your father, your husband learns with your son. They have a very, very fine connection for a father and son to have such a connection. Okay, that was it. She gets off the phone. She's like, you could tell she's floating. Okay. Sunday, my daughter comes home from seminary. My daughter was about 17 at the time. She says, Daddy, what's her name you called on Friday? Her daughter is in my class. Her daughter said to me that they had the best Shabbos that they've had in months. Her mother was relaxed. Her mother was floating just because she heard that somebody thinks something decent about her family. And it wasn't even my intention. I'm not saying, because, wow, praise me. I'm just saying that it's cheap. It doesn't cost you anything. And sometimes we think to do it. Oh, yeah, I wanted to do that for a long time. And you don't do it. And it's a big mistake. And ironically, the Gemara says when you go to a wedding, so there's a mitzvah to gladden the chassan. How do you gladden the chassan? You go to a wedding, you see people dancing, you see the shtick at the wedding, and you see some good shtick. You know what the Gemara says the best way to gladden the chassan is? To say something nice to him. Doesn't say anything about dancing, doesn't say anything about swallowing cotton balls that have been lit on fire. Ever see them do? They light the cotton ball, they put it on there. It's very impressive. You ever see them do that? They light a cotton ball and they extinguish it. If you put it in your mouth and you close your mouth, it extinguishes because of the oxygen. Except that at one wedding, the guy dropped the cotton ball and burned a train through the collar's dress. That was entertaining. Yeah, So the Gemara says the best way to gladden a chassan is to say something, a compliment.
Well, usually it's a compliment about the color, isn't it?
Yes.
You've chosen a great girl or something.
Yes. Yeah, not a compliment about him. A compliment about his color. You don't say anything about her. You don't say anything about her looks. It's not sneeze for a man to be talking about. The women could say that. The women could say, "Wow, she looks beautiful." A man doesn't say that, but a man can say, "Wow, she's a great girl. Great girl. I've heard wonderful things about her." That's the biggest mitzvah you could do. Or great, you're getting into a great family. Great move. Because why should you gladden the chassan? Isn't he happy on his wedding day anyway? The answer is there's an incredible uncertainty when you're under that chuppah. You're consumed with uncertainty. Everything is fine, great. Uh-oh. I had a guy told me once that he was under the chuppah. All he was thinking under the chuppah was, oh, I didn't realize she has so many freckles. Which is true. Because you're at the moment that you've made the choice, all of a sudden you've just trimmed away the rest of the world. And you're like, whoa. And it's very, very normal. In the first year of marriage especially, it's very normal. I'll put it in the terms that a big rabbi in Israel said. Any man who gets married and tells you that at no point during the first year of marriage he didn't think he made a mistake is lying. Because you made a choice, all of a sudden, whoa, either she's more emotional than you thought, or one day you saw her and she's not looking her best. When you met her on dates, she's always looking her best. All of a sudden, you see her in the morning after a full night's sleep, and it looked like her face has disappeared, and her hair looks like a bird's nest, and you're like, whoa, what did I do over here? And that's part of the maturing process. You're not perfect, neither is she. But at a wedding, there's so much uncertainty. To say to a guy, great choice, best thing you ever done. Very important. Even though we all know it's a mitzvah for somebody to tell us, but if you could fake the sincerity, and better yet, if you really say it honestly. There's a famous college football coach who said, the trick to this business is sincerity. Once you can fake that, you got it made. So a person needs to hear that. That's the biggest mitzvah. The biggest mitzvah is the verbal reinforcement that you give them. Okay, Jets, we'll stop.